Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Book Talk with Cara. I am so excited to have my friend Joanna Politano back with me as we are going to talk about her brand new book, The Life She Forgot. And this one, y'all, I don't have the cover I can hold up for you, but I have seen it and it is gorgeous. But Joanna, before we get to talking about the book and all the things that have been happening, why don't you update us real quickly? Because it's been probably 18 months since you've been here. Let us know what you're up
hmm
to and just a quick snapshot of life before we dive into talking about the book.
Sure. So I released my eighth book this last spring. And then this is going to be my ninth book. It's my first series, and this is the beginning of the new series. Other than that, I'm homeschooling my kids a lot. That's most of my day.
Yeah, well, and you've got three kids
hmm
that they're starting to hit the ages where that takes a lot more
Yep.
energy and brain space. And so that's a big
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. And I'm teaching my oldest how to write, which is super fun.
That is fun. And then to me, it was always teaching reading was the thing that I'm
Mhm.
like, if I mess this up, I have messed up something like a critical skill. Um, all the others I felt like we can fill the gaps, but for some reason for
Yep.
me it was like the reading was like the key thing.
hmm I felt like I was winning when I walked into my daughter's room and all three of my kids were lined up on her bed reading books.
That's
I was so
amazing.
excited.
That's one where you take the photo. You
Oh
like try and
yeah, I
sneak
got a
around the
picture.
door and take it. That's so fun. What are they reading right now?
Um, well, let's see. My oldest, she's reading all the classics. So she's reading like Jane Austen and Louisa May Alcott and All Creatures Great and Small. She started actually reading like Kim Duffy and some of the modern Christian writers and stuff like that. So she's just, I don't know, she's reading everything I read.
That's amazing. And then your boys are a little younger, right?
Yes, my daughter's 11 and then my boys are 9 and 4. So the 4-year-old thinks he's reading. He has the stories memorized and he can tell you what they say. But my 9-year-old, he's getting into like Oliver Twist and Treasure Island and like he really likes the classics too, but like the more adventure ones.
That is so much fun. And your 4-year-old is going to surprise you someday. And you're going to be like, oh, you've just got it memorized. And then you'll be, oh, no, what's this word?
Oh
That's
yeah.
always so fun.
He picks up everything the older kids are doing, so I have no doubt he'll not be far behind.
Yes, that's the fun. That's the real joy of having that youngest who's precocious and like, I'm going to keep up. There's no difference. No difference at all.
Yep.
So this book, The Life She Forgot, is coming out in April. And it's, like you said, it's the first of a series. That's different. It's very different to write a standalone and to write
hmm
a series. Why did you decide that you're like, I'm going to take this kind of pivot and go in a different direction?
Well, I had this idea that's just been kind of hovering in the back of my mind for a long time to write a series that revolves around a single house. So I put this house, and it's imaginary, but I put it on the side of the cliffs in Cornwall. So my daughter and I actually went to Cornwall and saw the cliff where it would be set. And it's just like built into the side of the cliff. And I just thought that was so atmospheric and interesting and mysterious. And so it's a reverse chronology. We start in World War II and World War One, and then we step back in time and we see each owner through history. And each owner finds like a different hidden chamber or a new room or a secret tunnel. And there's more and more and more to this house that they keep finding through each book. And they all kind of thematically connect, but they're all can be read in any order. But it's just the life of this very interesting house and all the people who lived there.
That is so fun. And watching you go through the cover process was actually really delightful because it was the first time you had that kind of control over
hmm
the house and so or the cover and the house and every all the little details that went into it. Um,
Yeah.
why this is when you're doing indie and you've been quite successful with doing the traditional route. Why did you decide now's the time that I want to do it on my own and take over that control of all the details, like the cover and the house on the cover and where the house is placed and all of those things?
It was many things, but I think it came down to one of the main decision points was that my homeschooling was taking up so much time that I still wanted to write, but I couldn't guarantee when a book would be done. So signing up for a deadline was just, it wasn't working. And so I just decided it's more work, but I can do it at my pace. And so then I can pick the covers that go with the mood and things like that. And to be honest, the publishers have always done a beautiful job with the covers. I do not fault them at all. But
Yeah.
it is really fun to be more involved in the process and to be able to say yes and no. My first cover came out looking like a medieval fantasy. And so we had to kind of go back to the drawing board and get some Cornish clips on there. But it's been a lot of fun. It's really been neat.
Well, and that's what's kind of cool about your journey is it wasn't a, oh, I had this horrible experience. Instead, you did
Mm-mm.
have a
Yeah.
really good experience with your publisher, but it was
hmm
more just the stage of life and
hmm
the ability to kind of have fun with the whole process because it's very different when you manage every step of the process versus the partnership with a
hmm
publisher. And neither's right or wrong, they're just different.
They're very different. But the good thing about going indie that's interesting is that I'm learning all this behind the scenes stuff. And so I feel like if I go back to traditional after this series or in the future, I will have a much better handle on how to sell a book well, how to market, how to do the publicity. You know what I mean? Like the stuff that authors are expected to do, I'll be able to do a better job of that because I'm learning it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is all about the life she forgot. Is there a clue you can give us about what's forgotten without giving away the book?
Oh, her whole life. So she has lived for 3 years hoping her memories would return after an accident. And when they don't, she gets married because she ends up the people who were employing her, the woman passed away, and so she's kind of out on her own. So this guy she's just kind of met fairly recently, they decide to get married. And then she starts remembering her past life that kind of conflicts with what she's building in the present. And so she's torn. She wants to figure out what she lost in her previous life, but then she kind of doesn't too.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me a little bit, and I haven't seen the movie yet, but there's the new movie with Elizabeth Olsen where she gets to heaven and she's got the first husband and then the second husband
Oh
because the
no.
first one died. And it's like, who do you pick in heaven? Which like I'm
Uh-huh.
not going to say that that theologically is sound, but
Right.
it was like what an interesting concept, and it's kind of the same idea here of I've got this new life,
hmm
I'm building this new life, and now I'm beginning finally to remember my old life, but I don't want to because now I'm building a new life, and all the
Right.
conflict that would be inherent in that.
Right. Oh, there's a whole lot of conflict because she thinks she might have been married in her previous life. So that makes it confusing because which marriage is valid and can she find this guy and why didn't he look for her? And yeah, it's a whole mess.
Yeah. Well, and after 3 years and not having
Yeah.
memories, how long are you supposed to look, and why aren't they looking for you? And I mean,
hmm
all of that. What a mess. Absolutely. So you are very good at building, like when you say an atmospheric cover, you build an atmosphere in your books. They are
Mm.
practically tactile in the way that you are creating the setting. And often we'll say the setting should be a character, but you make the setting a character in your writing. So when you're thinking about this story, what was one of your favorite sensory like details or breadcrumbs that you were able to kind of weave into the story that you think is just going to delight readers?
That's a good question. I think the scent, actually, because like I said, I went to Cornwall. I walked the footpaths along the cliffs. And everything is just, it's so magnificent. It's so like hard to wrap your mind around how huge the Atlantic is. And then you hear the waves slamming into the cliffs and everything else. It is very atmospheric. But what I will always remember is the scent. And I think the reason that that came up so much is because when we remember things, scent triggers our memory almost instinctually. And so that's what starts happening to this girl when she goes back to Cornwall. She smells the sea and she smells certain very familiar things. And it starts triggering like a trace of a memory that she can't put her finger on. But in general, there's just something beautifully unique and fresh and wonderful about the way Cornwall smells. It's right on the tip, where this book is set, it's on the very tip of Cornwall. So it's surrounded on three sides by the Atlantic. And it's just,
Mm.
it's immense and it's beautiful. And yeah, it just hits your senses full on.
Oh, that's amazing. I have not been to that part of England, but now you're tantalizing me. And I'm like, okay, I need
It's
to add
worth
that
it.
to, yeah, I need to add that to my itinerary. So, how do you capture this idea of memory? It sounds like you use scent. Are there other things? Because memory is one of those kind of ethereal
Yeah.
concepts. Like it can be hard to grab hold of. So, was there a way that you were trying to really portray that?
Well, I kind of actually did two opposing sides of memory because it's a split time novel. So I have her thinking about like how does memory shape who you are? Because, everything that you believe about yourself is just things that you've told yourself all along, things that you've built up about who you are. But if that gets wiped out, who are you?
Mhm.
If you're not an accumulation of your memories, what forms your story? So on the other end of that, we have this is pre-World War One. The other timeline is post-World War Two, and we have a vet who has PTSD, and he doesn't want his memories. He hates them, and he feels like he's a prisoner to them. And so he feels like, memories are shaping him in a different way. And so I kind of go back and forth between them. And there is a physical manifestation a little bit where there's a guy building a mosaic in a chapel. And all the little pieces that have washed up on the Cornwall shores form this big picture. But it's all these little broken shards and pieces and rocks. And the rocks have changed color over time as the mineral content has changed. So you see that this story is the shape of accumulated events, accumulated little details. And so that's kind of how both people end up looking at memories, just this accumulation of broken bits.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I
Oh,
love that
thank you.
idea,
It
the
was fun.
mosaic and the broken pieces and how it all comes together.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that was based on like a real mosaic in a chapel in Cornwall. So that was pretty neat.
oh my gosh. And that's why you have to go on location because that's when you pick up
Yes.
those things. Oh,
Yes. And all
I-
the stories from the people who live there are priceless.
yeah, so true. So this has a bit of the amnesia trope to it. How do
Hmm.
you avoid falling into the parts of that trope that make me roll my eyes?
I hopefully I pulled it off. A lot of the amnesia stories that I've seen, and I haven't read a whole lot recently, because I didn't want to mimic anything too much, but I see the memories being the goal, and I see them being the reward. And in this case, they're almost a punishment for her because she doesn't want to upend the life that she's building. But she also achieves what she wants before she gets her memory back, and that is
Mm.
being loved for who she is. So she's married to this guy, but then she's also looking for her original husband. And as she's kind of sorting through her old life, her new life, and trying to piece together who she really is, she ends up finding, um, like, I guess, the truest love before she even remembers fully who she is.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So
And I love
hopefully
that.
that's a little less cliche.
Yeah. Well, and I like how you phrase that it's not, the goal isn't the memories. The goal is something else.
Hmm.
And so it's just a way to get
Yeah.
there. Um, so how do you think this story could speak to readers who are rebuilding from tragedy? Or is that even a goal of yours?
Hmm. That's a good question. Well, the secondary timeline with the soldier who has PTSD, we definitely see him rebuilding his life after tragedy. He was an engineer who was tasked with blowing up bridges so the Germans couldn't follow them. And so he's really haunted by the fact that sometimes there were men on these bridges that he blew up. And he like relives all of this stuff. And so he's basically cut himself off from his previous life, including his wife, because he's presumed dead, and he's just holed up in this little cottage on the ledge of Cornwall's cliffs, and he's at like ground zero, and he doesn't want any of his life back. And so he has to slowly rebuild. Um, I guess he has to understand what remains after everything kind of imploded. And he has to relearn the worth of what he actually has. And the things, and he has to figure out what he actually has and what he doesn't, and what sticks around and what doesn't, which I think happens to a lot of us when we go through tragedy. There's things that fall away, there's people who fall away, and then there are people who emerge out as being more valuable than we thought. So I
Yeah,
think that's the story where that really shows through.
I love that. And it's so true. That is one of the hard parts of tragedy. It's also one of the beautiful parts of tragedy because we get to see people in a new light, like those that
Hmm.
really do care and show up in ways that we would have never anticipated.
Mm.
So, was there a moment in writing the story where you almost gave up because you're like, this book is gonna kill me?
To be honest, I almost gave up before I started writing it. Because I had this idea for several years. I was actually brainstorming this idea with my critique partner, Susan Tuttle, while we were walking around with our kids at a fair years ago. And I just remember thinking, this is just such a cool idea, but I couldn't pull it off. I don't think I could make it work. It's complex, and I'm not sure that I could make it lay flat on the page. And, I wasn't sure what to do with it. I just thought it was such a cool idea. And so I totally didn't plan on writing it, but it kept coming back and it kept coming back. And it just, I don't know, it really enchanted me. And so I ended up writing it. And when I did write it, it was the fastest book I ever wrote. Normally it takes me 12 months. This book took me 4.
Oh my
So it
gosh,
just, yeah, it came together so quickly and it was so much fun to write.
I love that. It's probably because it sat in your subconscious for so long.
Yes, it was percolating. I could see and hear and feel the characters and the Cornwall coast before I even started writing.
I love that so much. So, if you were going to be able to go join every book club who is going to read The Life She Forgot, what's one question you would love to listen to them debate and answer?
That's a good question. I think the way memory shapes our present reality and our story and who we are. Because a lot of times, I mean, we all have so many things we regret in our past, so many things we would have done differently, so many things that are yuck when we think back on them. But they're all still pieces of this mosaic that form who we are. Because you take out the ugly pieces and we would be less complete as people, right? So I would love to hear people talk about how that, if that resonated with them and if there was something in their lives that they were reticent to accept as part of their mosaic and their story, because they're all important pieces. They all are needed to tell the story.
Yeah. Oh, that would be a fascinating conversation to listen to.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, and something to really think about myself. Wow. Okay, so for the lightning round here at the end, what are 3 words to describe this book's vibe?
Ooh, atmospheric, mysterious, and love story. That's 2
Love.
words.
Yeah, yeah, but it works. It captures it. Uh, and then other than like amnesia, is there a trope that you embraced in this book or one that you're like, nope, totally flipped it on its head?
I would say marriage of convenience because she marries this guy pretty quickly and doesn't know him and then comes to find that there's some surprises that he has up his sleeve.
Okay. And if you were going to tell readers, if you love this, then you're going to love The Life She Forgot.
Ooh, well, I would say Daphne du Maurier type books, like the kind
Mm,
of lightly gothic, atmospheric, some of them set in Cornwall types of books. I've been reading Deborah Hathaway lately. I really like her books that are set in Cornwall. It's a little bit Jamie Jo Wright,
mhm.
but
Yeah.
not quite as dark as she goes. Yeah, I would say that's a combination.
Okay. And then this is a hard one because I always feel like I'm saying, pick your favorite child. Do you have a favorite line?
Oh, goodness. I think the last line is my favorite, but I can't tell you what it is.
Okay, no worries. There have to be some secrets. Absolutely. So, as people are, now they've met you, they've learned a little bit about the life she forgot. Where can people go to learn more about you and your books, Joanna?
I have a website, jdpstories.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter there. That's where I kind of share my most current things. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook under my author name. And
Fun.
I also have a reader group on Facebook actually called Once Upon a Story.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This was so great. I always love chatting with you.